Another extract from Peg's Boys by Johnny Tudor. Jono. Being part of the Debonair's concert party was an education I'll never forget. It was run by Jack and Gwyn, a double act, who played guitars, sang, and told racist jokes. This wasn't what I'd dreamed of. Life in the shape of stone-faced concert secretaries, hostile audiences, jealous husbands, and us all trying to change in the same lavatory soon jerked me back to reality. Jack, the leader of the party, fancied himself as a bit of a Lothario. Mustachioed and brill-creamed, he looked like one of those 40s film stars. When he wasn't on stage, he could usually be found under Ruby the Soprano's crinolines, copping a feel. The cramped backstage areas of the clubs weren't the most favourable ambiances for romantic assignations, but it didn't seem to worry Jack. Ruby's ill-fitting dentures weren't very conducive to French kissing either. She never went anywhere without her dental fixative, since her false teeth fell out in the middle of her rendition of The Chocolate Soldier. Ruby wasn't a particularly good singer, but she was the only one with a car, a pink Vauxhall Cresta with white wall tyres. I, alongside Cyril the puppeteer, Di the mime act, whose records were so cracked he decided to put them on tape, scratches and all, and Sid, the tenor and compere, or compact as he called it, would cram into Ruby's passion wagon. Dressed in our black tuxedos and wing collars, we looked like the bloody mafia. I soon found out that touring the South Wales clubs wasn't going to make me rich. We got 20 quid for the whole show, £2 for each performer, £2 for the petrol, and Jack got the extra 2 quid on account that it was his concert party. My first outing was at the T Nant Labour Club. Cledwyn, the camp concert chairman, or the Maid of the Mountains as he was known to the locals, met us at the door. He eyeballed Jack. "What do you call yourselves?" Jack shot a look at his case with the Debonair's concert party plastered on it, then back at Cledwyn. "Lock, stock and barrel," he said. "You trying to be funny?" "We did think of hook, line and sinker," said Gwyn, "but we think this sounds classier." "I hope you're as funny as you think you are. You'll need to be with this lot," he said, indicating a bunch of yobs, bawling out men of Harlech. "Give your music to Madam over there," he said, indicating a skinny guy in an ill-fitting wig sat at an organ. Jack handed our music to the organist. I use the term loosely. It would have been more fitting if he'd had a handle on his bloody organ and a monkey on the top. He peered at the manuscript. "Don't you have any music with the pictures on the front?" he said. "I can't read this handwritten stuff." "What do you mean? It's the same bloody notes in it." "I follow the words." "In other words, you're a bloody busker." Jack let out a resigned sigh. "Okay, just do your best." The gig was a nightmare. The members of the audience who weren't reading newspapers were singing rugby songs and heckling. Jack, trying to calm the situation, asked if they had any requests. "Yeah, piss off," yelled the ringleader. "Think you're funny, do you, mate? Funnier than you twat, and you're getting paid for it." Jack came back with, "When they circumcised you, they threw away the wrong piece." The heckler hurled his meat pie at Jack. Jack threw it back, hitting him smack in the face, and a riot broke out. Bouncers were called and the culprits were thrown out. The second half of the show went relatively well. The Maid of the Mountains paid us. We packed our props and left. The angry mob who'd been turfed out was lying in wait for us. A large barrel-chested man with muscles in his spit was bearing down on me. He looked like he could fight to the death just for fun. "You're not so funny now, are you, mate?" he sneered. I was surrounded. There was no escape. I knew what was coming, so I swung my case full of props as hard as I could and caught my looming attacker full in the face. He just shook his head and came back at me, like some heavy in a B movie. Cyril the mime act jumped on his back, followed by Jack. Bouncers from the club joined in and all hell broke loose. Ruby was screaming for help when Cledwyn appeared at the door. "I've called the police," he yelled. The crowd of revellers dispersed as quickly as they came and boarded the bus back to Merthyr Tydfil. From schlepping around the clubs, I gained valuable experience and a veneer so tough I could face any hostile audience. But it was time to move on. I couldn't wait to get my first solo gig. I had to find an agent. Tony Miles's backstreet agency above a chip shop in Cardiff wasn't what I had in mind, but Barry, a camp tailor known to his friends as Naughty Bar, who was measuring me for a stage suit at the time, insisted I check it out. "You've got a bit of a lazy there," he said, measuring my inside leg. "You need to get a manager and stop handling yourself," he added, giving me a suggestive wink. "Is Tony any good?" I said, trying to deflect his attention away from my crutch. "I don't think he's even booking a dogfight, but his auditions are worth seeing." I saw a bus conductor in one of those raincoats the lower classes always seem to acquire, carrying his bag of money and doing a tap dance. Top of the bill was a group he called the Mountain Men, with hair down to their cobblers, belting out a rock and roll number. "I think I'll pass on that one, Barry. What have you got to lose? Come on, I'll take you over. It'll be good for a laugh." The agency was above a chip shop. Oil paintings adorned the walls. Baccara rugs covered the floor. Antique vases and Tiffany lamps were strategically placed on mahogany tables. It could have been some swish office in Bond Street, not some backstreet gaff in downtown Cardiff. The flamboyant Tony was sat in a Victorian spoonback chair. In his skin-tight leather trousers, blouson shirt, floppy bow tie and immaculately trimmed beard, he looked more like a Ponzi hairdresser than an agent. I shot Barry a "what the hell" look. "His wife is an antiques dealer," he said from the corner of his mouth. "She's older than him. He was going out with a daughter, saw the mother was loaded and married her instead." Tony eyed me up and down. "Hi, Barry. Who's this?" "This is Jono, a customer of mine." Tony clicked his fingers. "Garçon, champagne for my guests." The girl hovering behind him handed Barry a cut glass flute. "Things are looking up, I see," he said, caressing the Stuart crystal. "Not bad, but I've had a bit of a bother with a taxman lately. The twat said I owed him 10 grand. I offered it to him in Reddy's. He said he'd see me in court, the bastard. Anyhow, to what do I owe this visit?" "My friend here is a song and dance man. I thought perhaps you could put a few gigs his way." "Not much doing around here, Barry. I'm booking more gigs abroad these days." I booked a great act into Malta, an Elvis tribute. He looked just like him. His sideburns met under his bleeding chin. I got him £1,000 for the night, and then I get this call from the club saying that the band can't read his music. So I thought I'd better get over there. I've had the money up front, see. What an impresario, me. Anyway, they said they had this army band on Gozo. "Can they read music?" I said. "Read music," he said. "Only 14 anthems at bleeding sight, that's all." They turn up. The bass player picks up the music and starts to shake. I said, "What's wrong with him?" He said, "He's nervous." "I'll give him bleeding nervous," I said. So they get this doctor to give him an injection. Stone me if he didn't throw up in the middle of blue suede shoes. He waited for the laugh. "I used to be a comedian, you know." "Were you any good?" "I'll tell you how good I was, son. The bloody dog act got the standing ovation. I was what you might call a footsteps comedian. I walked off stage to the sound of my own bleeding footsteps." Is this guy for real, I thought. His story was very funny, but I'm sure he'd made half of it up. "Anyhow, about you, son. Do you mind travelling?" "No problem," I said. Done it all my life. I got a gig in Liverpool if you want it. It pays 100 quid. Interested? 100 quid? It sounded like a fortune. Was this guy kosher? I looked at Barry, who tipped me a reassuring wink. Tony pushed a contract at me and told me he'd be on 20% commission. I thought the commission was a bit steep. Most agents only took 10. But I had nothing else, so I signed the contract and caught the next train to Lime Street.